So starting us off is a free bicycle the wife and I found on the side of the road. Luckily I had a couple of tools with me, so I was able to take it apart and get it all inside the trunk. Now the motor that we're using here is a Kawasaki KT17. This motor here, I actually restored it a few years ago. I restored a whole hedge trimmer, and I kind of forgot I had it here in my garage, and no one seemed to want it when I was selling it, so I took the motor off, and here we are. So this little motorized bicycle can be made in about 1 hour. You just need some metal and a turnbuckle, which we may or may not use in this build. I'm not too sure yet. You're going to need yourself a welder, cutoff wheel, and safety glasses. They're kind of optional. So first off, we're going to start with a little BMX peg. It's an aluminum peg and knurled. I went ahead and cut it down, and this bolt that I'm holding is for a valve cover for some Toyota or Nissan. I'm not quite sure, but it had a nice shoulder, and it fit the motor just fine. So now that we have the spindle mounted to the motor, we're going to figure out where to mount it to on the seat post. And the turnbuckle, if we use it, might mount somewhere down here if I drill a hole through the frame, or just hook it right on where the training wheels used to go. But we'll see later. So for this application, a friction drive, I like to use a hedge trimmer because they have these 4 bolts and they're pretty stereotypically the same, unlike the weed eaters that I typically use on other builds where I keep the centrifugal clutch. On this one here, you could fire it up, and it idles without going anywhere until you squeeze the throttle. And you can see the turnbuckle here to add tension to the friction drive. And the problem with these weed eater ones is how wide they are with the clutch still attached. So with this one, using the hedge trimmer motor and no clutch, it's going to squeeze everything a lot more together on this kid's bike. And of course, I got some high performance tires. And yeah, of course. Now the tires are labeled as 16-inch, but they don't fit. So right now we're going to forego the high pressure thin tires, and we're going to go ahead and start making a paper template for the metal that we've got to cut out for this motor. And if your fingers are extra greasy, you don't need a pencil or a Sharpie or anything. Here it is. And with that piece of paper taped onto the metal, I can go ahead and use a Sharpie and figure out where all the holes are going to go and draw a generic shape of kind of how I want the bracket to look. It really doesn't matter. Now this plate here is 1/8 inch thick, which I think is more than enough. And I'm leaving a little top piece here, pop some holes in it, and after drilling and a little bit of cutting here, cutting noises, we have ourselves a nice little engine bracket. And at first the holes didn't quite line up, so I drilled them out bigger, and they work perfectly now. So now that we've got that bolted to the motor, we can kind of eyeball where it's going to go. It's going to attach right to the seat post. Now on this one here, I decided to not put a hinge on the seat post and use a turnbuckle. I'm just going to allow the seat post itself to adjust to go up and down, and that'll add tension from the friction drive onto the tire. So we've got this little piece of other bike handlebar cut out, and that's going to be just a nice little bracket, and we're going to go ahead and just weld this all up. And you're probably not seeing me use a tape measure, and that's because I don't normally use them on these kind of projects. I think a lot of people get their projects hung up by trying to make everything way too accurate. You know, we're building a free 2-stroke motorcycle. We're not building a Ferrari. And so anyways, with those welds on, the motor mount is just about done. And really the last thing to do is go ahead and reuse this little throttle lever from the hedge trimmer, but we got to add a longer cable to it. And that's a real easy process. You know, it just pops right in there. I couldn't find my small zip ties, so these ridiculously huge ones will have to do for now. And the hedge trimmer throttle piece fit right onto the bicycle handlebar, so that was nice. Here we go. Okay, stay. And now you're just about ready to be the coolest dude on the block with this hog. All right, this is probably a terrible idea, but I'm holding the top part of my tripod in my left hand and hoping my phone does not come out of it. Anyways, here we go. And like I said, this is about a 1 hour build with a couple of basic tools, no measuring tape, and just a little bit of hope.
That's all there is to it. As always, guys, thanks for watching.